The 3DS was filled with a bunch of really cool little games to showcase the gimmicks of the console. You've got Face Raiders for the camera, a bunch of games to show the AR capabilities, and of course the Street Pass Plaza, one of the coolest parts of the entire console. And then Wii U didn't really have anything. The Switch didn't have anything. But now the Switch 2 kinda returns to that 3DS feeling, only this time you've got to pay for it. I mean, you guys can get into that. I think it should have been bundled, but today, I just want to focus on if the game itself is any good. But you know, when the Switch 1 came out, I wanted an HD Rumble showcase because it sounded really cool. Breath of the Wild wasn't that, and so I turned to 1-2 Switch. And every time I showed someone this system, I would always demonstrate ball count. Feel the balls, I would shout at all my friends. I did not care much for 1-2 Switch otherwise, but that specific game was a really cool hardware showcase. Welcome Tour is a lot of ball counts. The entire game is a virtual expo where you walk around these gigantic 3D renders of the console playing little tech demos. Some of them are actual games, but others are literally tech demos. And to be honest, there is quite a lot here. There's 20 minigames that all have sequels, sometimes threequels, and these are absolutely the best part of the game. And then there's 14 standalone tech demos, which can be really neat, especially if you're not used to 4K, HDR, or VRR screens. And tying it all together is essentially one big interactive Ask the Developer interview. These always go way further behind the scenes than I expect, cause Nintendo's usually so secretive, and with Welcome Tour, they pull the curtain all the way back on the hardware itself. They tell you how every component works, what it does, what solutions they came up with when they found issues when making it. And as someone who's been following this console obsessively, I actually learned some new, pretty basic things. When the Switch 2 Pro controller is wired up, it's even faster than the Switch 1 Pro controller wired up, even though they're both going straight into the system. The touchscreen supports 10 fingers. I didn't know that. And they put a chip to remove bees so there's no buzzing noise when you're using game chat. Oh, that's wrong. It's to remove the fan noise. Good. You know, the bees deserve to be heard. I found myself actually being interested in this game. There's tons of fascinating things to learn, and it's super cool going under the hood and seeing all the components firsthand. And a lot of these tech demos are pretty essential for those who haven't experienced the features of the Switch 2 screen before. I mean, most of us probably don't have VRR displays, right? One demo's got this rotating Switch 2 model, and you can adjust the frame rate to whatever you want it to be, from 0 to 120 FPS. You can turn VRR off, turn VRR on, and when it's on, even when running at 20 FPS, it still looks pretty good because of VRR. And that is variable refresh rate for those who don't know. Basically, the screen changes how it updates depending on the frame rate, which normal screens don't do. They're fixed to like 60 Hz. And as far as I know, Welcome Tour is currently the only 120 Hz game. You've got a pretty cool frame rate guessing game where a ball goes by at 10 FPS, 20 FPS, 40 FPS, 60 FPS, 120 FPS. There's also a game where they demonstrate just how big 4K is by putting Super Mario Bros. In its original resolution and having it draw itself out the entire resolution of the screen, and it all fits, the entire level fits. There's some cool 3D sound demos too, and by the way, the speakers in handheld mode are wonderful, like a really unsung part of the system, but it rocks. But HD Rumble 2 and Mouse Mode make up the bulk of Welcome Tour experiences, and man, I am an HD Rumble 2 believer. You know that card matching game where you turn them over and try and find a pair? Well, that's here, apart from instead of turning over, you feel a rumble. So you gotta try and match the rumbles, like a drill, a bell, a zipper, a motorbike, and they're all super distinct. One of the tech demos lets you play around and make your own HD rumbles. But the best part really is when HD Rumble and the mouse are used in tandem, because that's actually new. PCs don't do that. One really cool game has you feel a blank space and asks you what shape or letter you're feeling, and it's so tactile to move the mouse around and genuinely feel the outline. And talking about going beyond a PC mouse, a bunch of them use motion controls in addition to regular mouse movements, so you can now rotate an object while in mouse form, which isn't possible on PC. This was a pretty neat one. You've got to try and color the image in without going beyond the black outline, and so to do so quickly to get all the medals, you've got to rotate the cursor as you move it. And I love this little game here. You just move the car left and right to avoid the obstacles, but every now and then the car's got to go on two wheels, so you tilt the Joy-Con up. It's immediately responsive and accurate, and does such a cool job showing that mouse games on Switch 2 don't just have to go for a moving cursor or a PC-like shooting game. Although Welcome Tour does have games that pretty much are that as well, but it has to be said, using the left Joy-Con to move around in a PC first-person shooter is a really cool evolution, because instead of WASD, you've got full analog. One more thing PC mice don't do is dual wielding. There's a few games in here that use them both at the same time, like this UFO one, where you avoid spikes and collect stars with both hands simultaneously. And there's an ultra-hard version of this to unlock, and I literally couldn't do it. I had to get my wife to use the other Joy-Con for me, and that was pretty cool too. I've never done local mouse multiplayer before. There aren't any ray tracing games, but they do talk about ray tracing, and there's an example of it too, so here you go, Nintendo's first glimpse at tracing rays. Welcome Tour takes you beyond just the Joy-Con and screen. All the peripherals get the exact same attention to detail, and so if you've wondered about the engineering of the Joy-Con grip, now you can be informed. Did you know there's feet that it can stand on easily to not be knocked over? Well, now you do. Only the most exhilarating facts from me. You can go to all these exhibits regardless of whether you own the peripherals, but there are two games that need beyond what's in the box. One is a game about GL and GR inputs. It's like Simon says, they keep telling you to press more and more buttons, and it's not really possible to press them all without remapping them to GL and GR. Another one is a camera game, and look, I don't own the Switch 2 camera, and so I plugged in an old Logitech webcam, and that did the job. Your face is mapped onto a 3D model, and you've got to match the expression. This is a really rad and very responsive one. But of course, this means if you want to do everything, you're going to need 2 extra peripherals. But with that said, I'd rather they be here than not. The camera one is one of the coolest. So, the elephant in the room with all of this is Welcome Tour isn't much of a game. It's a lot of concepts, it's an interactive interview, it's getting to know the hardware. I mean, I think it serves a cool purpose, and with so few games using Switch 2 specific features right now, I think it's pretty easy to recommend. But put it against something like Astro's Playroom, which achieved very similar things while most importantly being a fun platformer, and it's clearly not in the same league. But you still have some genuinely fun mini-games mixed in with the best showcases of what the system can do, both with its inputs and its display. Given 8 years ago I paid full price to count some balls, some progress has kinda been made. Welcome Tour makes you appreciate the Switch 2 hardware more, but now I just want some full-on actual games that make use of everything it demonstrates. What I'm really saying is, when are we getting WarioWare? So we're giving Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour a 7 out of 10. It's easy to wave this one off. I wasn't exactly shaking with excitement to play it, but once you're in, I think it's actually pretty great. You just need to go in knowing what this is. A bunch of demos and hardware tours. It will not change your life, but I think it's important to know exactly what your Switch 2 can do, and there's some excellent showcases in here. Such as this.
Excite bots for the Nintendo Wii.
Pandora's Tower for the Nintendo Wii.
Wii Sports Resort for the Nintendo Wii.
Wii Chess for the Nintendo Wii.
Wii.